Listen, I know what you're going through. You're doing the Iron Twins Fortress, you're progressing, things are looking great. You already started the key, you're at 80%, 50%, 40%, things are looking fantastic, and then wipe. It just happens there. What I'm going to talk about today is one gear set that makes it so much easier to progress through those crucial last bits of health on the Iron Twins Fortress. Let's dive straight into it. What up, team? It's your boy MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and we're talking about, you already know what we're talking about because I just outlined it for you, the frustrating, and listen, Plarium was good with this. They made a boss, it wasn't very challenging, but it will shock you and surprise you, right? It's really easy when you first start, you're going through, then you get to the end health levels, and everything changes, right? So I want to talk about that, and then most importantly, the gear set that changes all of that. So in order to understand the gear set, you have to understand what mechanics we are trying to avoid. As you kind of just saw, the champions I'm going to be using to go over the gear set and show you live examples of what it does. So we're going to take this off of auto here and listen. We have the skills here. Attacks one enemy after hitting the initial target, then has an AoE. Then we have this next one, attacks all enemies, places or extends the Iron Brand debuff, which ends up becoming a problem as you get to the lower levels. Then we have Ruinous Swathe here, attacks all enemies, places or extends the debuff on all enemies. The duration of each Iron Brand is determined by this, that, and this. I'm not going to go over that specifically, but the key thing to look at is the bottom here. Will not use this skill when their HP is below 40%. You might see that, and then you might go to the other ones, and you might see this one for Fires of Insanity, and this first one here. Okay, so this one stays here. So you might see these and go, wait, the boss gets easier below 40%. We're saved. It's now not using Fires of Insanity nor Ruinous Swathe. So this is it, GG. Smooth sailing from here on out. Wrong. You would be wrong in thinking that, because of this ability here called Doomsday Machine. Yes, what a fitting and proper name for a skill. Attacks all enemies 2 times, each hit places or extends an Iron Brand debuff. And then we have this second part down here, which is the lethal part. After the first 2 hits, attacks all enemies again. So for a third time here, the damage inflicted to each enemy increases according to the number of turns remaining on each enemy's Iron Brand debuffs. This hit will ignore 30% of each target's defense. So this is a killer. You know this, I know this, everybody knows this. This is the killer move. When the A1 is used below 40%, this is your time to heal back up, cleanse the debuffs, make sure that defense down and that weaken is not on you, or it is literally game over. Unless you have Unkillable, Swift Parry, which you're probably not using, that's too much of a gamble, or you have a low stacks of Iron Brand, which if you're that low, are your stacks going to be that low? Probably not. So this is a breath of fresh air when this does happen, because we do have a 2-turn cooldown on Doomsday Machine. So with all that being said, what gear set am I talking about? Now listen, OG Clan Boss players, this is your time to rejoice. The gear set I am talking about here today, and by what I said you probably already know it, we're going to head straight on down to Stalwart Gear, minus 30% damage taken from enemy AoE attacks. Now, why is this so good? Why is this so important? It's not just the text. Sometimes it cannot be fully understood just by looking at the text here. So reducing damage taken, minus 30%. This is so strong, and people overlook this quite often. They're taking increased health, and we all know health is the best survivability, but that's for a stat only. The best survivability in the game is straight damage reduction. Why is that? Because you cannot affect it by anything in the game. What do I mean by that? Ignore defense is the biggest killer in everything. Arena, Raid, specifically the Iron Twins, straight damage reduction is not affected at all, which is why Strengthen is the most OP buff in the game for damage reduction. Of course, there are passives, but as far as buffs go, Perfect Veil can't hang in there, but Strengthen is very strong. Strengthen is like the opposite of what Weaken does. Increases damage taken, reduces damage taken, and it cannot be altered or affected by anything. So that is what I want to show you here today. What we are going to be doing just so I can physically show you, not physically, but visually show you, that's the better word. What this does is we are going to be using what champion? Don't forget on me now. What champion did I decide on? Okay, so we're going to be using Burangiri. I don't know how I forgot about this champion because it's such a unique name and unique looking champion for sure here. So this is what we're going to do. As we can see here, I don't have Stalwart gear on. That is not a mistake. I want to show you the before and after of this. So we're going to take a look at the stats here. 49,000, 3,500 defense, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to swap to when I do apply Stalwart. I got it down very close. The defense remains unchanged, so the fluctuation in the damage taken is going to directly impact the minus 30% damage taken. The health, I did the best I could. I got within 18 health. Now, I don't think you guys understand how hard that was to do. I had to find, like we can see, this deflection pair of boots. It had to have HP percent and flat HP based on the other gear that I had. Then I had to find boots with the same thing, HP percent and flat HP. Then I glyphed it to get as close as possible, and I'm off by 18. It is what it is. It's not going to affect too many things, so you're going to be able to see a realistic representation of what we are doing here. And I needed to make sure there were no masteries, so there's nothing additive, multiplicative, affecting the damage reduction of Burangiri here. So we are going to head into the Iron Twins and let's look at the numbers a couple times. All right, so here we are inside of the match now. We're going to keep this at 1x speed. Okay, so we got crit for 25,000 damage at the start. I don't know why I swapped it onto 2x speed. That was kind of unfortunate. We do have some healing coming in here so we can see multiple turns, but 25,000 crit. And now we have a 23,000 crit. Okay, so we really need to start pumping these heals up with Doom Priest, with our friend here, Vogoth, to make sure we get a few more attacks in for sure. So we got all this going on. Let's see what the next hit's going to be. So we have 18,000 on the initial crit on this guy. Now we have 17 stacks here, so let's go ahead end the battle really quick and we're just gonna replay it. So now we've replayed it, we're on 1x speed. Let's see the first hit here, 23,000 hits. So the first one was 25, this one's 23. Let's cycle through this one more time here. Use a little bit of that. It seems like this guy has crazy crit rate all of a sudden. I was kind of hoping for no crits. Okay, 17.6 thousand. We're at 18 stacks already, so I don't really want to see, we'll let one more attack go through just to see what the A1 does. All right, here we go, here we go. All right, the next attack should be his. Of course, it's going to be. We'll see how much damage. Okay, 18.1 thousand here. Now weakens on. It's not a good representation. So we're going to do this one more time here. And then we're going to swap to our Stalwart gear. And you can just look at the difference here. So 16,000 on the initial hit without a crit. So that's good. We finally got one non-crit here with no Iron Brand debuffs on the champion. So we're gonna scale it through this here, the next 26.9 thousand. Every time it crits, the reason why I don't want to crit is because crit damage has scaling and there's a lot of variance to that. There's definitely variance in the normal attacks, but not nearly as much when you start adding crits and crit damage. So I've kind of been looking for any non-crits that have been possible here. So we're at 18 stacks once again here. So let's cycle through and hope for one more AoE attack, which is going to be the A1 from this guy. Okay, so 18.5, 18.3, and 18.6 were what we saw from the AoE. Now, let's go ahead, and I do understand that whenever you're testing something like this, you would have to do tens of thousands of iterations, but that's not the point here. I'm not trying to tell you the exact numbers because it's explained. It's minus 30% here, but the point of this is to show you guys how much of a difference this makes and explain why it is so important in the overall scheme of things here. Okay, so we're going to swap on these Stalwart boots here. Now we have the 4-piece Stalwart set. We have 18 additional health. It is what it is, like I said, but let's head back here. And as we're looking at the numbers and the new numbers, we're going to be going over why this is such a big deal, especially when you get down to the lower phases. Okay, straight out the gate, let's see. So 11,000. Now, if you remember the first non-crit, we were at around 16,000, I believe. Now we're down to 11,000. So if you're just thinking about your gear level, and how hard you're getting hit straight out the gate here, this adds up incredibly. So once again, 11.2 thousand. I mean, you guys can kind of already see. Now we have to kind of hope for a crit here. And I guess, listen, you guys, I'm sure your attention is quick enough for me to do this on 2 times speed here. So let's just look at these numbers because not too much is happening. Okay, so 18.6 thousand here. Why is this number the same? Attacks one enemy. This is not an AoE ability. So since he's the target getting attacked, that number is going to stay and remain consistent throughout the entire battle here. So let's go ahead and replay this one more time so we can see the numbers. 12.8 thousand. Once again, much lower than 16 and much lower than 18,000. Let's go ahead and cycle through again here. Get 11.6. So outside of the text of Stalwart gear, now you guys can really see the strength of this. And like I said, I am kind of fishing for a crit here, so unfortunately the single target's going to be next. Let's just end the battle. Why am I ending the battle instead of continuing? Because as the Iron Brand starts stacking here, okay, now the numbers are just getting lower. This is that variance I was talking about. So as the stacks get higher, of course the damage becomes higher here. Okay, so only when I'm doing a video, I get crit 3 times in a row in the first test, and then I go to the Stalwart gear, and now it's all of a sudden adding like crit resistance. Not that that's a thing, it's not a thing. But in case you're wondering, I think he has 15% crit rate, so the odds of that happening were very low. If you have decreased crit rate buff, he has a 0% chance to crit, which would help you guys out a ton for sure. So the next one's going to be his A1 once again, so I'm just going to keep refreshing this as I kind of go over the benefits and the values as to why Stalwart's going to be so good for the lower threshold health levels. The key here and why you guys are dying, I mean, you guys pretty much know why you guys are dying, but the key is going to be you have to recover in between every single Doomsday Machine. That's the key to beating this boss. If you're not using Geomancer that can just evaporate this boss in seconds, if you're not using an unkillable team, Doomsday Machine is the biggest threat to you as the player in progression no matter what. Now, if you can't mitigate it with those other teams that I just mentioned here, which most players won't be able to, Geomancer isn't that uncommon, but having multiple Geomancers is definitely a problem. Duplicates aren't the easiest thing to get in this game, and I don't have to explain this to you. If you're already using, okay, so 17,000 crit, just to interrupt my point, this is what I'm talking about. 17,000 down from 25. It may sound so little as far as health goes, but it's not. It's a huge deal. I cannot stress that enough. So back to my original point, you need one turn to fully recover your team and not fall behind. It's so easy to fall behind, and that's what's ruining so many people's chances of downing this boss at the highest possible level based on their gear progression and overall champion progression. So adding Stalwart to your team, what are you going to need? This means that you need a healer for sure. Cannot stress that enough. A reviver is not going to be good enough. A budget healer is not going to be good enough. As we can see here, I mean, I didn't even intend to do this, but I'm using Vogoth as well as Doom Priest. This is going to be good enough, granted you're using decreased speed on the boss, which you should be if you're not using a team like Unkillable or you're not using a team like Geomancer. Any other variation of a team, you need decreased speed because once again, it's going to go back to those lower HP thresholds where you need to be getting as many turns as possible in between this killer of a move Doomsday Machine. So taking reduced damage from Doomsday Machine is going to be a huge benefit, and then giving your healers as much time to heal you back up to full before you get it again. Now, this is the second part of the issue here. If you're getting one shot, even with Stalwart gear, you might be thinking, okay, that does nothing for me if I swap to Stalwart, so now what? The answer to so now what is you have to do more damage. There's no other way to talk about it unless you want to refer to my other video where I gave you the foolproof way to complete anything here. The reason why you're taking so much damage, and I'm sure you know this, is because of the stacks you have. How do you mitigate the stacks you have? You run Strong Affinity. That way this boss is weak hitting you, you're getting to those end stages of life with lower stacks overall, and then Stalwart is mitigating more damage, ensuring you survive. Outside of that, what else can you do? The answer to that, like I kind of just hinted at, is going to be do more damage. It may sound weird, but my best advice to you as a player, if you're still getting there and you're getting one shot with Stalwart, with healers that can heal you back close to full, and you're just getting overkilled, is this. Once you get to, I want to say 50% health, so like the halfway point, start manualing. And manual is the key here. I understand it's annoying, but we're talking about progression here. This costs energy, so it's kind of a big deal to make sure you're not wasting anything in this game. swap to manual, use your skills and abilities, especially from your damage dealers, very, very carefully. Once you hit that 40% threshold and the first Doomsday Machine comes out, gauge how much damage you're taking. Say, okay, that got my players down to 30%. Can I survive the next one? If you're only going to 30%, the answer is yes. However, once you start getting to 20% per hit, the next one is going to kill you. You do not want to say, I have to not get crit for this to work. That's the worst because it's 3 hits. Granted, it's only a 15% chance to crit, but we all know this. When we're in progression mode, this game's going to crit you. So just always count on that. This is when you have to make a decision. You have to make sure your cooldowns are up, and this is your burn of the boss. You have to burn it as best as you can, and ideally, if your reviver has low stacks, you say, okay, this is the champion that I need to survive, because every single other champion is going to die here, and like I said, cooldowns, cooldowns, cooldowns. This is your time to really crunch together, make sure everything's off of cooldown, that you've been saving from 50% health, which is the halfway mark, of course, and you can just front load all of that damage onto the boss and go for that final push to get it down to make sure you have a high success rate. This boss is arguably one of the most important bosses to have a high success chance on because of how much energy it costs. If you're free to play, low spender, even if you're a whale, the goal of this game is to be efficient. Biggest misconception is whales are not efficient in this game because they spend money. The most efficient players I've ever met in this game, the ones who have the insane spreadsheets, are not the free-to-play players. Do they have spreadsheets? Of course. Are they following them religiously? Of course. That's how they min-max. But the players that put in countless hours making those are going to be whales, because they want to make sure anything they spend, they're getting as much value as possible. Am I talking about all whales? Obviously not. The ones who are getting rank 1 tournament champion chase probably have no idea what they're doing. You can kind of see that. But everyone else, as far as whales go, they're the ones making the fastest times in the world and all of that good stuff. So they know what they're doing, and they understand that even a dungeon like this, they're doing their best to perfect it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the world record speed time for this dungeon in the next video, so definitely catch me on that one. So give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Definitely, if you can, start farming dragon. That's the great thing about this, right? If you're a new player, even if you're not a new player, mid-game, late-game, end-game, where do you get stalwart gear? From dragon. Who doesn't need dragon? Unless you're like crazy 0.1% endgame, you probably need dragon. Speed set, fantastic. Toxic set, depending on the type of clan boss team you have. If you have unkillable team and don't have a Dracomorph or someone like that, you're probably going to use Toxic on your unkillable. Takes a while to farm this gear because you need high speed. Accuracy, fantastic. Lifesteal, you don't really need after the early game. Destroy set, very niche for the Scarab. Frost set, garbage, don't use that. Daze set can be useful on some champions like Hegemon, but really small chance. Avenging, not a fan, I just instant sell that. Sure, there are some applications in the arena, but once again, speed set's king, right? That's something that's gonna be the best forever. Yes, there's all of these new sets that you can get from the Forge, from the Hydra, Stone Skin, all that good stuff, but speed set, doesn't matter where you are progressing the game, it's good. So the fact that Stalwart also drops where the best farmable set in the game drops, you're doing pretty well here. So it's not going to be too much to say, okay, I have to farm this random dungeon. No, it's the same dungeon you should be farming for your progression, getting all of those speeds up. So that's the other benefit of this. I highly recommend you guys get out there, start farming for this stalwart gear set. It's going to reduce the damage significantly, like we saw from these examples here. Give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Hopefully this helps you guys out. That is going to be the point of all of these videos for sure, to help you out in progression. Make sure you're killing it on the Iron Twins Fortress. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.